everybody, and welcome back to season 3 of the podcast. We are so excited to be back with another season. We've launched Sundays in person. So if you want to grab a ticket, then we'll leave the link for that in the description. But I hope you enjoy the podcast.
Hello, Bree. Welcome.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Welcome. Yeah.
Welcome
good,
to me to your podcast.
It's not my podcast.
I don't know, whose is it anymore? You stole my job.
Citizens
so.
podcast.
Citizens podcast. Oh, having said that though, I wonder if we need to I listen to a lot of podcasts and I notice that people end up naming their tribe. So like Chad Veach, the leadership lean in, they've got the leaners. And so we're like the citizens sit down. So I wonder if we need like the sitters.
Sounds like a babysitter. Sitters.
Yeah, I know, but we look after you, what? Get it? We look after you. The sitters. We look after you.
Oh, got you, yeah.
Yeah, we got you. As in, we got you.
Why aren't we just the citizens, though?
Yeah. Sitters. You need to react better to me saying the sitters. Not, when I said, we look after you, you just looked at me like.
I didn't understand what you meant.
Anyway, maybe we're the sitters. The sitters. What do you think, people? The sitters. We are the sitters. Welcome to the Citizen Sit Down, and we are the sitters.
Hello, sitters.
Yeah, because we're gonna sit and we're gonna take this in.
Yeah, it sounds
sitters.
great.
Yeah, watch this space.
Absolutely.
So welcome, sitters, to the Citizen Sit Down. It's happening. Come on.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well.
Season 3.
Season
Come
3. Well, we're going to dive a bit deeper into the last couple of talks from Sundays. We've officially gone live on Sundays, which is new.
So much has happened since last season.
I know, so much.
Oh my gosh, what happens over March? Was it March? April break? Easter break.
I can't even remember.
Look what happens over Easter break. You come out, you got Sundays,
yeah,
you've got multiple
Sundays
services.
If you want to join us, book a ticket, because we're live on Sundays.
But we're actually sold out this Sunday.
Oh, we're sold out. We'll book the following week.
Yeah, book. Just
join
get
the
on
waiting
it.
list.
Join the waiting list.
Do whatever you have to do.
DM Bree on Instagram and get yourself a ticket. Sitters, make sure you're there. Come on.
Well, we've started this series looking at the life of David, Lessons from a Life in the Mud, and you spoke to us a couple of weeks ago about our vision as a church, and I just wanted to start basically by asking, why do you think it's so important to have a vision as a church, and does that mean that we're not going to be relying on God for direction as we go forward?
That's a good question. Well, I like to hope our vision comes from God to be definitely not something I've dreamt up. I think if it was, it wouldn't be as audacious. And, I think, I feel like God, I hope God speaks to us in different seasons for different things. I think we kind of have a vision of where we want to be in 10 years' time. Mm-hmm. That's like the kind of long-term vision. But the kind of vision we spoke about the other day is much more of our short-term plan. Like for this season, like the kind of things, we've got so much happening. And I think, we're trying our best I feel like it's my job actually quite a lot of the time to try and best work out how we can allocate our resources, and especially in terms of like people and, not just financially, but so I think working out how we can best allocate our resources in terms of how we can serve our city. There's so many opportunities coming out. And I think when you're a new church plant, there's so many things we can do, and we can, obviously there's so many, like homelessness. You walk through the city centre, homelessness is so evident, and like that, there's so many issues that you see. But it's quite hard to try and work out what we should do in that. Like we could do everything and we could feel like, okay, let's do absolutely everything. And I think when we first moved here even, we were like, yeah, let's do everything. But a few specific things they feel like they're really taking off. Feels like the doors have really opened. And so I feel like sometimes, and this isn't all the time, but sometimes when you're trying to follow what God's doing, it feels more like you're chasing a ball down a hill, like you're trying to keep up, you're trying to catch it. Whereas sometimes and this is, like I said, not all the time, but sometimes when God isn't in something, it feels more like you're pushing a rock up a hill. And so you're just and like it's not opening, it's not going, it's not flowing. And so I think we're trying our best to kind of work out what that looks like. And so the vision that we spoke about is much more for this season, some of the opportunities that have come up, some of the things we're doing. You know, we're planting a church this season now. You know, if we talk about 10 years time, I'm thinking more like 10 churches, 15 churches. Well, yeah, I mean, I believe in acceleration. So, you know, if we're doing one now, you know, we should be doing multiple a year, few churches a year. You know, that's more like in 10 years time. You know, they say, there's that saying, isn't there? We overestimate what we can do in a year, but underestimate what we can do in 5. And so I have no idea what we're going to look like in 5 years. Have some dreams, have some visions, but I mean, I had no idea that we would look like this now. Like, this is insane what's been happening. And so I think, we're just trying to keep up with what we think God is doing. And I think some of these things that we spoke about were just, you know, doors that have been flung open, and we're just trying to run through them, and, you know, we're just trying to pour oil on fires that have already started. So, I hope God's in it. I think he's in it. It seems like he's in it. It's growing. It's thriving. It's healthy. Healthy things grow. And so, but it's definitely for this season. You know, in October, it's going to be Vision Sunday again. And I mean, I don't even know what we're going to talk about then, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be good. It's going to be big. It's going to be even bigger and better than this one. So yeah.
Great. Yeah, and something I love that we do as a church is we have visions like for everything, I guess. Zach and I have definitely created a vision for like the creative department, and I think something I would love to just talk into quickly is how, if I'm, whether it be like a hangout or a team or an alpha group, like how do I create a vision for that? Like what does that actually look like to think through what we want to come of it?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, we have a macro vision, which is quite general, which is to play our part in the re-evangelization of the nation, the revitalization of the church, and the transformation of society. And so it's quite broad. And so then when you bring that down, I think that looks like, as a church, and, you know, and our mission statements helps with that. You know, we want to break the stereotypes of church. We want to breach loneliness. We want to bring people home, and we want to build God's kingdom. And I think with that, you know, bearing those things in mind, when you're thinking about something like a hangout, it's like, okay, well, you know, if we want to do these things, then we want our hangout to be something that welcomes people that have never been to church before, because, you know, the re-evangelization of the nation, you know, we want to meet people that wouldn't go to church. And so I think much more of it is the lens that we see things through. So it's like, okay, trying to understand, okay, if I've just come to church for the first time, or if I'm just coming to a hangout for the first time, or alpha for the first time, or if I'm coming to this team night for the first time, if I've never been part of a church before and I'm walking in to join the justice team, you know, what's it going to feel like? And so it's trying to put ourselves in other people's shoes. And I think, you know, we're trying to meet the needs that we see. So talking about hangouts, like you said, I think it's all about breaching loneliness. And oh my gosh, we've spoken about it so many times, but loneliness was already at an all-time high, let alone before COVID. And so that is one of the things we're trying to tackle through our teams, through hangouts, for our church. That's what we're all about. And so I think we all can do that. And so I think all of our vision is trying to build community, and how can we best do it? And for different people, it will look like different things. But we are basically, however we word it, we are all doing the same thing. We're trying to enable people to belong. Belong before you believe is something we say a lot, because I think that, like, I can't make anyone a Christian, but the Holy Spirit can. And I mean, only God can make someone a Christian. And so it's when God enters into your life, when the Holy Spirit moves in your life, that is what we are longing for. And so, but what we can do is provide the warmest welcome, is provide and enable someone to belong, a place for people to belong, provide a place that feels like home. And so that's what we're all trying to do. That's why I really care about vibes. That's why you'll find me running around at all of our events like, oh, what are the light bulbs saying? What are these? Because I just think it matters so much. It's why I care so much about the comms. and care about all of it, because it's showing people, it's giving people a little picture into who we are, a little picture into what they could come to.
Yeah.
And for anyone who's a bit like, oh, I'm not sure if I'll go to it, we want to show them what they're missing out on, that actually this isn't some weird cliquey thing that you won't relate to. Actually, it's the best place to be any night of the week. It's the best place to come. It's the best place to find community. It's the best place to find family, to find belonging, whatever you believe. And I just, so I think, you know, it's all one vision. However we word it, it's just all about how are we creating a space for people to belong. And I think I see it very much as our job, and I talked a lot to the staff team about this, that our role, you know, you've got all these people, kind of, if you think about it like a dartboard, you've got all these people around the edge as they come in, and our job is to get them all into the center as quick as possible so that there's more room at this edge for more people to come in. And so that's why getting everyone on teams, getting everyone in hangouts, getting everyone belonging. And then, so then we can be there with a big open door, you know, but we also need to close the back door. And the way we do that is what I guess churches call discipleship. But for us, you know, what we say is people just need to be needed and known. And so that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that everyone has a role here, no matter who you are, no matter where you're from, no matter what you've done, no matter what you believe. There is a job and a role for you here. And people need to be known. They want to belong. They want to have a family. And so I get that. That's the vision. That's the vision of every team, of every hangout, of anyone. And I think you can word it how you want, but as long as it's overtly centered around that, then I think you're onto a winner.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my next question was how do people at home, if they're watching and they want to get involved with this vision, how do they do that? But I think you've kind of answered that in the sense we want people on teams. I mean, rumour has it the creative team is the best team to get involved with.
Rumour has it. It's pretty good,
yeah. Or like hangouts or coming along to Alpha, meeting new people. But yeah, I think we just want to encourage people to get involved, don't we, ultimately, and get people along to things and so that you build that community and you become part of a family that is working towards this vision together.
Yeah, and also I think because what I love is there are obvious teams to join. You know, we've got a card that we handed out and there was like six teams on it or eight teams or something. But then on top of that, there are other ministries that we just don't even know about yet, that we haven't started yet, that are coming out of the congregation. We spoke about some of the befriending ministries that we do as a church, that the justice team are involved in, you know, Starfish, caring for ex-offenders, Embrace. But these things have come out of the congregation. Like Embrace just came out of someone from the congregation wanting to basically start befriending victims of human trafficking. And she started it. She's the one. She reached out to the charity there and just said we could partner with them, and it's just all come organically out of that. And I think that's, once again, there's so much more room for that. If there's a need that you can see that isn't being met, and that you think that we could meet it somehow, then why not start it? Like that's what the church is. So once again, another thing we say to our staff team is that our role is to just enable the church to be the church, to serve our city, to serve this nation. And so yeah.
Sweet. I just want to move us on quickly to giving. And on Sunday you spoke to us about, it was Gift Sunday. And I think we want to kick it off with basically asking, why is it so important to give financially? And is there a certain amount we need to be giving? What's the deal with that?
Yeah, it's I said on Sunday as well, it's always been a difficult thing for me as well, because I think it is difficult for us to talk about, because the British people don't really talk about it much, giving or money, or I think it's quite a vulnerable subject. Yeah. We're not great stereotypically at being vulnerable. But also I'm an only child, so I've never been very good at sharing. And so it did take me a long time to really realize it, but I think it's not taught enough that giving is a spiritual discipline. Like we talk about prayer and reading the Bible, but they don't talk about giving alongside that. And actually giving is just as important. Yeah. Because it's all about faith and it's all about relying on God. Also it's about trusting in Him. Like, you know, the Bible talks about, I think I said, it talks about grace like 171 times, talks about love and things like that. It talks about love, prayer, and faith about 500 times, but it talks about giving 2,300 times. Like it's such an important subject in the Bible.
Yeah.
And even when, and even the verse I spoke from, you know, with David and Solomon, and they're looking to build a temple for God. Yeah, like God provided the finances, but he didn't just like send a money cloud or a money tree. Like he used his people to provide the finances, but also his people didn't go without. Like he did provide for them. And I think firstly, we can rely on God a certain amount, as long as he's not, you know, it doesn't leave us vulnerable. And that's the thing, we need to be willing to be vulnerable with our finances. You know, we look for security in our finances. As long as we've got a certain amount in the bank, great, I can give some away. But it's, you know, we're taught to give our first away. And that is the challenge. It's like, yeah, before that though, don't give your leftovers, give your first. And I think, and the heavenly economy is that there will always be leftovers, which is this, you know, I spoke about a bit about the feeding of the 5,000, and there was this little boy. He's the only one for some reason out of 5,000 people who had his lunch. But he yeah, great mum. A feeder as well. He gave him 5 loaves and 2 fish for one lunch. But anyway, I think the thing of that was that this boy gave all of his lunch away. He didn't think, oh, okay, yeah, I can give you 4 of my loaves, but I'm going to need a loaf of bread myself. He just gave it all away. He didn't know that it was going to come back to him. But not only did it come back to him, but there were 12 baskets of leftovers. And that is God's promise. And actually, R.T. Kendall, I didn't speak about this. I think it's R.T. Kendall, who is a famous theologian. He just says, look, he would say that giving, he's got a book called Between the Lines, and in it he says that giving is the only time we are encouraged to test God in our giving, because he will provide for you. The test is, trust me. You trust me with your finances. If you give sacrificially for me, I will provide for you. And he says you can test me on it. And it's the only example in Scripture where we are encouraged to test God over the finances, because he says, I will provide for you. Jireh doesn't mean I'm going to give you money. It doesn't mean I'm going to give you food. No, it literally means that God is your provision, that he in himself is everything you need, and that he will make sure you have everything you need. But the reality is we don't even know what we need. We think we know what we need, which is why we want to keep money in our bank account in case we realize we need something else. But it's, you know, don't get me wrong, I love nice things, and I'm not saying, you know, I think, you know, I'm not saying that we shouldn't buy nice things and nice clothes and you know, I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying we should have a relationship with money that puts God first, and that keeps us relying on him. And I don't think many of us do, if we're honest, have a relationship with money where we're relying on him. And, you know, and in terms of how much, once again, that's different to people. I think the principle of tithing is a classic one. So if you actually want an amount, you know, we are encouraged to give 10%. The principle of tithing, tithe literally means a tenth. And the challenge of the Old Testament, you know, or the Bible is to give a tenth, is to tithe. And so that's an amount that is recommended, really. And I think, you know, for some people that might be hard, but you could start with a fifth and work your way up. And I think that's 10% of your income. That's encouraged. But, you know, we haven't taught that here, because my old vicar says, it gives you an opportunity to give more if you want. But it shouldn't be seen as an opportunity. Oh, great, I don't have to give that much then. Because actually, I think giving will seriously unlock something in your life that will enable you to rely more on God. But also, like I said before, it also teaches us more about who God is, because giving, you know, every good and perfect gift, it says in James, every good and perfect gift comes from God. And so if every gift comes from God, we can't give anything anyway. The only way we can possibly give is if God has given us it to give, in which case it's an invitation from him to join in with him. And it's like, okay, God is inviting you to join in with him in something. Are we gonna take it up or not? And I think his invitation is always one that will enrich our lives. And once again, it's trusting. You can't necessarily see it. You know, David and Solomon, in the scripture I spoke about, it was 1 Chronicles 29, and David was originally asked to build a temple to God, and then God said, actually, because of some things, you're not going to be doing that anymore. You're not going to see this temple built.
Yeah.
But Solomon's going to build me a temple. And even though David was never going to see this temple built, he gave everything he had to it. And I think it's trusting. That trust is also, you may not see the fruit of your giving. You may not see the fruit of your sowing, but you've got to trust that God will use it and he will multiply it. And so once again, I think, around that how much kind of thing, that boy just gave what he had. If we give what we have, it doesn't have to be a certain amount. Like it should feel like a sacrifice, but there's not like a magic number. People have different income streams, and there's so many stories in scripture, like the widow's mite and stuff, of an image of this woman who had very little, but she gave the one little thing that she had, and Jesus was like, hey, that is sacrificial giving, compared to the rich person who can easily throw a large sum in.
Yeah.
It's not the same. It's about giving what little you have, and that basically means it's just an act of worship ultimately. So there's no magic number. It's not like, oh, you should give £100 a month no matter what your income stream is. It's not that, but it is, are you giving sacrificially, in a way that firstly makes you rely on God, in a way that brings you closer to him, but also in a way that just means that you can trust that he will use it for his glory, and he definitely will. And that is the principle as well, the principle of the heavenly economy. It's one of multiplication, which is also what we spoke about, and how you give your little. This boy gave his little, and it fed 5,000 people. He gave 5 loaves and 2 fish, and it fed 5,000 people, and there was leftovers. And it's just that sense of, we just give our little, and God will multiply it, and will use it to do what he wants to do with it. But yeah,
and I'd just love us to talk about we've spoken into financial giving, but what are some other ways that people can give to Citizen?
So I think also it ties into the vision. I think giving I think it is the call on all of us, giving. I think it's the greatest gift that we have, generosity. In fact, we've just added it to our values. Generosity is our gift, because it should have been there from the beginning. It's such a key value. Grace in itself is a gift. God so loved all that he gave. And I think we are called to give. We are called to live lives of sacrifice. Jesus taught us that. If you want to follow me, pick up your cross. Like you're sacrificing. But I think you give. I think 3 ways. I guess you give your treasure. So we've spoken about that. You give your time. And you give your talents. And so I think, your time, some of us, you might not be very time rich, but giving sacrificially of your time to serve, to be part of these teams, that is giving as well. That is, time is such, we're here for a finite amount of time on planet Earth, and to be able to give that precious time to God, to serve him, to serve in teams, to serve our city, that is giving sacrificially. That is sacrificial giving. But that's not instead of giving financially or giving your treasure. It's as well as. And also, I'd say we're also encouraged to give our talents. Now, God gives us gifts like music or things, and I think once again, serving on teams, serving in a way, great. We could go. I'm always blown away by people, by like when you watch like Elevation Worship and things like that, and you're just like, oh, you guys are like, you should go on X Factor. Do you know what I mean? So you should go on X, but they don't. They're like, nah, like we're committed to the church. And I'm not saying that if you're a Christian that means you shouldn't go on X Factor, or you should. We need Bieber repping the kingdom all over the place. But it's just, I do think, when I think about people like Justin Bieber, it's like, oh, you've absolutely like rocked, like you're at the top of your game. And so, but what is so powerful is when now that he's just released like, is it Freedom? It's like everyone is paying attention now.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like what you spoke about when you spoke about excellence and stuff, and it's like people take notice. I think once again, it's the giving of your talents back to God. God, everything I've got is from you, and so now I'm gonna like represent you for that. And so it's like watching the ways that, like, when Bieber's speaking about, you know, God and his relationship with Jesus, like people are noticing, and it's like such a platform. And I think each and every one of us have been given a platform. Whether you've got 100 Instagram followers or whether you've got 100,000 Instagram followers. And it's about influence, and it's about using our talents, the influence, which is like the parable of the talents is different amounts, but what did you do with it? And I think it's about using our influence with the people around us for God's glory, which once again, you know, the temptation could be to use it for our own or to promote ourselves, which is, you know, but if you continue to use it for his glory, your platform will grow. So yeah, I'd say your treasure, your time, and your talent are probably the three things. There's probably more, but the three I can think of that you can give. I know you'll begin with T, so that's probably one.
I think it's worth saying as well with talents. I mean, I've met quite a few people who are like, I don't have anything specific. Like I don't play the drums, or I can't take photos or whatever. And I think it's worth saying that if you can make a cup of tea, or you can buy a coffee for somebody and have a conversation, then God will use that.
Yeah.
Like, we need people to look after people. We need pastors. We need, you know, it's not just about what you train to do. It's about how can God actually use what you have already. And if you can hold a conversation, then that's as much of a talent as playing the guitar on a Sunday morning.
But it's that thing of influence. I think everyone has influence, whether or not you're on Instagram. You know, you have influence. You have people in your sphere, and that is, I think, it's like what are you using your influence for? Whether or not it's a global platform or a family platform. You know, we've got 10 people. Like, it's what are you using your influence for? And I think it's just using it for him and for his glory.
And finally, I just kind of want to talk about, how do we go about discussing giving, whether that's in our friendship group or within our hangout, in a way that doesn't play to the stereotype of, the church just wants our money, but how do we discuss it healthily?
Well, I think the main thing, I think once again, it's the church isn't a thing. Like, we are the church. And I think it's reframing that to be like, no, we, as a church, we're committed to this vision. And so let's give sacrificially to this vision. Let's make sure, you know, like, I think for me, I don't really think the most encouraging number for me with giving isn't how much money we've got coming in, but it's how many people are giving, like, on a monthly basis, like, are regularly giving, like, because that just shows that, like, I don't know, like, you're committed to this. And I think the truth is, it is a heart thing. Like, it's that thing that Tozer says, which is that, like, oh, God doesn't want you. He doesn't want your wallet. He wants your heart. Your wallet's just in the way. And I think so many of us, the last thing we do is we put our money in. But actually, the Bible says that where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And so it's flipped. And so it's saying, well, no. You put your treasure in, and your heart will follow. Yeah. It doesn't say where your heart is, your treasure will be. Yeah. It says where your treasure is, your heart will be. And I think that's the challenge. Is it's like, oh, what does it look like to lead with my treasure? And trusting. It's the same with investing in anything, you know, like in a relationship. You can't just be like, live off the fuzzy duddy feelings forever. It doesn't. Like, you need to invest, and that's what will keep your heart in it. You invest in it. And let's be honest, in relationships, it is financial. You know, dates, they're spenny. Flowers, they're spenny. But it is. But it's that level of investment. But I think the same for the church. Like, the truth is, people, like, we are the church, and yeah, like, we have a good vibe here. Like, you know, we love being able to offer Papa John's because I think it's a great welcome for people coming for the first time, and also to be able
Yeah.
to meet out there having Papa John's. I've already met people that like, oh, I've come for the Papa John's. Like, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And, you know, but that is an expense, and we won't be able to keep doing it if people aren't giving sacrificially towards it. And it's the same for everything we do. Like, all these little touches, like we can stop having them, and we will have to if people don't give sacrificially to it. But or we could go even bigger and even better, and we can do more, and we can be even more hospitable, and we can create more ways for people to belong. But it just will require us all giving sacrificially to, to this thing that we are all living for.
Yeah.
And I think it is just trusting that also, the bonus of that is it will also bring you closer to God. It's not prosperity gospel at all. I don't believe in that. Like, the more you give, the more you get isn't a thing. Like, you can't give a certain amount and then get access to some higher level of faith. That's not a thing.
Yeah.
Grace is free. If you're praying for breakthrough in one area or something, the more you give isn't going to affect that. It's not going to.
Yeah.
If you give more money to God, he's not going to make sure that you get enough money to get a Lamborghini. Not a thing. None of that's a thing. But the heavenly economy is one that says, hey, you give sacrificially and I'll look after you. That's it. God's always promised that he'll look after you. And he's never going to penalize you for giving sacrificially towards building the kingdom, or to serving the lost and the lonely. He just isn't, but he will bless you for it, and he will look after you for it, and you will be closer to him for it.
So good. Well, thanks so much for joining us, guys. I will leave the link below if you want to get a ticket for Sundays or join a team, hang out, sign up for Alpha. All that will be below. But I hope you have a great week, and we'll see you soon.